Everybody say hello to Harrison Ford. The new film is inspired by true events, but you don't have to play a real guy.
It's based on the real story of John Crowley and his extraordinary family. He's a guy who whose two children were born with a genetic disease called Pompei syndrome, and he quit his job, gave up his health insurance, which was basically paying for his kids' care, and got venture capital, went into business with a research scientist that I play, and developed a therapy, an enzyme therapy for his kids' disease, and then sold out to a big pharmaceutical company. And when the enzyme was ready, his kids were ineligible to get it because he was an employee of the firm that developed the therapy. And so they found a way for his kids to get the enzyme. His kids are doing well now, have lived beyond the expected life of a Pompei patient.
Is the criteria different for you for a role you're going to play as opposed to a film you're going to executive produce? Are you looking for different things?
Well, I've never executive produced a film except that I was a part of it, that I was in it. That's too much like a real job.
So then why make the choice to do that?
No, I'm done. I'm out of that. But you know, there aren't as many parts for old guys that are interesting, and so I'm probably more involved now than I ever was.
Is it like jumping in hot water or being in cold water while it boils, the realization of your age? Like when you say there aren't as many interesting parts, is it something that's obvious at one point, or do you look around and go, wait a minute, I haven't gotten very many great scripts in a while?
Well, I got a pretty good one last year, 2 years ago for Indiana Jones. I think this...
It's an indie picture you're talking, like small film, right?
You know, it's not a sudden realization. I'm in the show business. I'm watching what's happening around me. I'm well aware of what's going on. And it's no surprise the audience, you know, the average age of the audience is way less than half my age. And they like seeing, you know, their own representation, you know, they like seeing people of their own age. And
so I mean, you joked about being out of it's too much like working, you know, executive producing and acting. But this is where you're going now. It's developing more of your own projects.
Well, you know, I still feed opportunistically when something comes along, and I've got a comedy coming out in July that's they arrived on my doorstep, sort of, you know, fully formed and in real good shape. But I've got another picture that I'm working on now for April that I'm executive producing. You know, it takes a long time to get material in shape, and it takes a long time for studios to decide to do something these days because there's not as much money around, and they're all scared for their jobs.
Did the reasons you take jobs, has it changed? I mean, aside from the obvious, when you're younger, you're looking for stability and a way to build your name. But have the reasons for why you do what you do changed over the years?
Not so you'd notice. I do it really because I like it. That's where I feel most useful, is on a movie set.
What was it like punching Jack Lemmon in the face? You were in that film Love, where you just ran out of his great beret, popped him in the mouth, and left. And that was your scene.
Yeah.
Being in those early days, could you pick up on stuff then?
No. No, I had no idea what I was doing. I was getting $150 a week on a 7-year contract with Columbia Pictures. And I had to do whatever they assigned me to do. and I was pretty unhappy with it.
That's why you left, isn't it?
Yeah, I became difficult. And they finally let me go.
How do you define difficult?
Well, look, I went to this guy's office. After the first part that I played a bellman in Dead Heat on a Merry-Go-Round. And I was called into the office of the guy who was the head of the new talent program. And he said, "Sit down, kid." He always called me kid. It was a good start, don't you think?
That just burns somebody, doesn't it?
And he said, "Let me tell you a story." He said, "The first time Tony Curtis was ever in a movie, he delivered a bag of groceries. A bag of groceries." He said, you took one look at that guy and you said, "That is a movie star." And I leaned across his desk and I said, "Well, I was thinking that maybe you were supposed to think that that was a grocery delivery boy." Don't applaud me, I ain't making this up.
It shows how crazy it was, right?
Yeah, well, he's nuts.
So when you left, before, and then obviously, much is made of your career, the only thing I can't seem to get definitively true about your career was that when you became a carpenter, that's what hooked you up with Lucas, and that's what got you your gig.
No, I'd done American Graffiti, and then all I was being offered were parts like Bob Falfa. And so at the same time that this happened, I had bought a house, my first house with my young family, $10,500 for a house. And I knew that I could save money by removing the things that I didn't like about the house. When I got done taking away the things that I didn't like, there was no house. Yeah. Literally no house. There were layers of home improvement, and when I got through the last layer, there was no, stud walls. There was no framing on the upper floors. It was just 1x12s butted up against each other with a batten over the edge.
I don't think that's code.
It's not code. So, so I bought some tools and I got some books and I started to, figure out how to be a carpenter. And a friend of mine, I didn't have any money to buy materials, so a friend of mine said, "Do you want to go talk to Sergio Mendez?" He was his recording engineer. Sergio wants to build a rehearsal space for himself in his backyard. I said, okay, and I went over and we got to talking, and Sergio forgot to ask if I'd ever done it before, so I didn't mention it.
Because he didn't check your references.
No, but it ended up being a 12-track studio, $150,000, which in those days was a lot of money for a building. And when it came time for Star Wars, I'm just realizing I'm not sure the chronology of this all makes sense.
Don't worry, somebody's Googling it right now.
Good. Anyway, I went back to when George was casting Star Wars. He said he told everybody's agent that he wasn't going to use anybody that he'd used in American Graffiti. He was going to look for new faces, and that was fine with me. And I was on the floor of installing a elaborate portico entrance to Francis Coppola's offices, and because I still had ambitions to be an actor, it was something I only worked at night doing this. And I was there one morning sweeping up, I finally finished and I was sweeping up the sawdust, and in walks George Lucas and Richard Dreyfuss to do the first of the interviews for Star Wars. So Richard Dreyfuss had been in American Graffiti. So I didn't say anything, said hello, blah, 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 and within about a week, George had asked me if I would do him the favor of reading with the actors who were testing for the parts of Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker. And I read with about 300 actors without ever being, without it ever having been mentioned that I might be considered for the part. And in the end, they came down with 2 sets of 3 characters, and the part, the Han Solo part, in one grouping was me, and the other one it was, oh gosh, what's the dancer, the great kind of goofy actor with the hair, who's a great dancer.
Travolta?
No.
Are you talking about a proper dancer, or Gregory Hines, great dancer?
No, I'm sorry. I walked myself into a closet here. I'm sorry.
A closet that you no doubt built, Harrison. Yeah. So, but then I wonder, you know, what's interesting about being able to do, I mean, doing Han Solo and doing Indiana Jones, you build these two strong characters that have strong franchises, and then you've been able to go do other stuff, and you've built other films that have connected. So you've got films like The Fugitive and the new stuff that you've done, and then you go back into an Indiana Jones film. What's it like to, when you're still making films, different characters, separating yourself from your past, and finding a way to bring your past into it?
It's a luxury. It's great. It's terrific. I've always loved making those movies. They're a lot of fun to make. I like working with Stephen, but I like doing other kinds of things too. And to be able to have done both at the same time was great. Right. I never thought I couldn't. Christopher Walken.
That's who it was.
I mean, even he admits he's got funny hair.
A lot of people forget.
I wasn't making fun of him.
He's a hell of a dancer. A lot of people don't realize
Great
that.
dancer. Great dancer.
For sure. Do you define success of a film differently when you do have an official executive producer title on it, as opposed to when you're, you know, behind the scenes putting it together?
No. You know, first thing is you want people to go and you want to make back the money that's been spent. Mm-hmm. You got, you know, you hope to break even. And then after that, if it gets better than that, then that's a good thing.
Is it harder for a guy like you? Because, I mean, your box office numbers are what they are. But does that carry a lot of weight today when you walk into a studio?
Well, you know, it doesn't happen that I go and put something together and it doesn't happen. You know, it hasn't yet. I haven't get flat turned down, get out of here.
Do you have another indie film coming? That's the story.
Well, you know, George is noodling around with a couple ideas, and if he comes up with something that both Stephen and I can, you know, agree to, I'm hoping it would be nice.
Is it? You know, somebody asked Mick Jagger why he still makes records, and one of the reasons he said was because the Stones hadn't made their Sgt. Peppers yet, and that always felt like they were chasing something. Do you look? Is there something on your shelf that you think I need to make a film like blank?
No. I just like doing it. I feel comfortable on a set. I feel at home on a set. I feel useful, more useful there than at home.
I'm not your therapist, but is your head noisy? Like sometimes when people aren't on set, they're not working, a lot of stuff is swirling around in their brain and they don't get a true sense of who they are because it's so noisy.
Oh, I stopped thinking about who I am. I'm more interested in other things now.
Do you get much time on the motorcycles?
No, you know, I ride with a bunch of pilots from the airport where I keep my airplanes. Sunday mornings we go out and ride 3 or 4 hours.
You flew into Toronto, didn't you? You were the pilot.
Yeah.
Are you better at takeoffs or landings?
Well, you got to be good at both.
Before I wrap up, I'm curious what the conservation work you do. There's a great YouTube video of you getting your chest waxed. You know, which I never thought I'd ever say great video and chest wax at the same time. But I mean, just tell people about that.
Well, we're trying to illustrate. I've worked with this conservation organization called International Conservation.org. If you want to know more about it, and I've been on the board for almost 20 years. So this idea was proposed to me that this be one informational video that we make. Done a number of different things like this. I don't want to be a poster boy for conservation. I honestly believe that the arguments should be conducted by experts and that people shouldn't be choosing an opinion about the environment based on, you know, some all-star team. But I do think, you know, that my expertise is in the area of communication, and if I can be helpful in that way, then I do that every once in a while.
It's nice to see you, man. Thanks for coming in.
Hey, thank you.